And here we go. This is actually one of my favorite games. Well, of course, this is VK actually playing through Megaman X6, my favorite X series game. Why is this game my favorite? Well, it's a couple different reasons. Before I discovered the internet, I actually played this game a lot out of all of the different X games. So I didn't realize that everyone hated this game until, I don't know, 5 years after I got this game. It's a pretty nice game in my opinion, especially the difficulty. I love the difficulty. The story is but this was back during a time when the story wasn't huge in most action games, and they did attempt to try. For all the people who hate the story of this particular game, well, unfortunately, you just kind of have to get over it because the Zero series could not exist without Zero coming back and this game happening. So Zero 2 through Zero 4, which had great stories, yeah, they could not have happened if it weren't for this game. So if you don't like the fact that this game exists and you don't like the fact that the story went the way that it did, it's kind of a too bad. Anyway, this game does make quite a few changes to the Mega Man formula. Well, not really a few changes to the Mega Man formula. They do a couple of things that I really like. I did really enjoy the fact that they gave X a saber, which was, in my opinion, pretty awesome because I like the close combat ability while being able to stay a pretty long distance. Um, Something else I liked about this game was the fact that, oh, I love the soundtrack. I love everything about this game, really. Anyway, not really talking that much about the game. Starting off with the story, the story of this particular game is kind of funny as the X5 story or the X5 endings. None of them really have anything to do with the way that this story starts off, because if you know the good, with quotations, X ending, that shows 3 years later where Zero hasn't come back, but this game takes place 3 weeks later. So it's either retcon from the good ending or we're pretty much going with Zero's ending, which actually could be quite possible. Um, First starting off, well, anyway, I'll go more into the story in detail later. But for right now, we're going to start off in. I don't know why I can't think. We're going to go ahead and start off with the gameplay now. The armor that you start off with in this particular game is the Falcon armor, unlike the fourth armor, or the Force. I still can't remember. The armor that you started off with in X5. There's a few changes that have been made to this armor, which I don't really show in this. Well, I do show one of the videos, show one of the things in this video. This armor can no longer fly like it could in X5, which actually was a pretty decent change because it was quite broken. Flight invincibility made a lot of the bosses cake, especially Sigma's final form. It was way easier than using the ultimate armor, unless you decided you want to spam the ultimate attack, which I think I did in my last video, but anyway, that's a completely different story. Another thing that changes between this armor and the X5 Falcon armor is the fact that this armor can now charge special weapons, which I'm not going to show in this video. I think it can charge special weapons. I'm going to have to confirm that later. This armor does add a few gameplay mechanics. Right here you see the Reploids. You can actually rescue. There are Reploids that you have to rescue. There's 16 of them in each individual stage, and they can give you parts. They increase your life bar. There's a lot of things that they can. They increase your energy bar. There's a lot of different things that they can do. So it would be a good thing to pick them up, and it actually makes 100%ing this game a lot easier than it was in X5. In X5, it was literally impossible to get every single one of the parts in a single playthrough. However, X6, you actually can. It's a little hard, and I'll probably be going into the detail of that in the next stage, but it's still possible. This first boss is fairly easy. Just hit him with your saber, move on. I mean, most intro stage bosses are fairly easy. Let's see, what else did I want to talk about? You do get to keep your Giga armor, your Giga attack, which in X5 they didn't let you keep the Force armor's Giga attack, which probably had to do with the fact that they didn't want to give you invincibility. But in this particular game, you kind of need the Giga attack at certain points, which I'll probably be using it at my personal favorite stage in this game, Blaze Heatniks stage. Yeah, it's a pretty hard stage. Anyway, what you just saw there was a shadowy zero form come down and attack the mechanaloid. Yeah, they call it mechanaloid. This is the story. This is a part of the story of X6. That shadowy zero form is important, but not that important. This right here is actually one of my favorite bosses in the game, is High Max. And it's funny, the reason why I like High Max is because in a lot of games where you have an intro stage and they introduce a boss that you're going to fight later, they go from making this boss completely impossible to beat to making this boss cake, making a boss cake, which X6 did not do. What X6 did was, this boss is invincible to most of your attacks, yes. However, at the end of the game, when you fight him again, yes, you do fight High Max again because you can't beat him here, you still can't damage him with the majority of your attacks, which is, I actually quite enjoyed that. I like the fact that they threw that in there. It was nice. I don't know. I like the consistency. I love the consistency with that. So, yeah, we're still ignoring the story. Where do I want to go from here? Right here we have another cutscene. All the cutscenes are actually voiced in... Did I skip the cutscene? No, I didn't. It comes after this. All the cutscenes are actually voiced in this game, but they're voiced in Japanese. So if you don't understand Japanese, you don't really need to hear it. I have it turned off because for some strange reason, it sounds very loud and distorted. So I have the voices turned off, and you'll actually see me most likely turn it off before the beginning of each individual playthrough. Like X5, this game does have 3 endings. There's 2 endings with X and 1 ending with 0. Well, whoops, sorry. Spoiler, you can play as 0 eventually. 0's not dead. If you didn't know that at this point in time, where have you been? You've been hiding under a rock. Back to the story of this game. What's really going on is, actually, I guess I shouldn't really reveal anything, but these Reploids, this guy right here and High Max, they're trying to look into the Zero Nightmare, which was that shadowy nightmare, that shadowy purple Zero that we saw earlier. There's more nightmare. There's like 3 different types of nightmare that's mentioned in this game, but for right now, we're mainly focused on the Zero Nightmare because that's what this entire game is encompassed around, is the Zero Nightmare. Right here, this is actually explaining why the Reploids, you find those Reploids in the stages, because they were called on as volunteers, which was a trap, but of course I'll go more into that as the story is revealed. Not that I didn't just give you a gigantic spoiler there, but oh well. Yeah, this is the one thing I hate about the first playthrough. I have to sit here and wait for all the text to move on. I can't go ahead and mention this. I am actually post-commentating rather than intercommentating, I guess, like I did with the X5. There's a couple different reasons for that. Number one, I do play better when I'm not focusing on trying to talk and trying to keep things going in my head at the same time as I'm playing, but also, which allows me to get better playthrough, even though I do still die a few times. I would prefer to show a non-dying playthrough, and I can actually do a non-dying playthrough whenever I'm not extremely out of practice like I am here, but I think it lends more to the experience if you actually do see me die, if it's not a perfect run. Maybe I'll record a perfect run eventually one day, but not at the moment. It is my favorite X game, so it's actually quite possible. One of the things that they changed between X5 and all the previous X's, well, X4 and X5, that they changed to the X6 is this, and it actually happens on the screen. I'm hoping that it'll happen soon. Come on. I hate having to wait for text. Come on. Okay. Some stages change depending on if they're red or not. Those changes seem to be permanent. That's what I remember. I haven't played through this game in a long time, and this is almost a little technically a blind run because unlike the X5 playthrough, I actually played through the entire game a few times before I showed that off. This one, besides the recording that you see that I uploaded earlier, this is pretty much it. There's not been really any practice at all in this game, so yeah, this is going to be fun. This right here is one of the things I loved about X6. In X5 and X4, they made you sit through this incredibly... Oh, there's a part system. I'll get more into that later. This is where they show all the Reploids that you found. Go more into that later. But X6, they decided to take out the Maverick introductions because they didn't really tell you anything. It's not like you really care about the Maverick stories, even though they do explain that post-destruction, but not pre-destruction, which I really like that. I hated having to spam or mash the X button so I can get through the introduction because I didn't really care, or I'd read it for the umpteenth millionth time. Anyway, I'm going to Shield Sheldon stage, and I'm not necessarily going to go fight Shield Sheldon. His stage does have a few gimmicks to it. Oh, the exclamation mark you see down at the bottom right. See, I just rescued a Reploid. The exclamation mark you saw at the bottom right was actually Alia wanting to talk to me and tell me something about the stage. That's a big thing about... Oh yeah, I died here. I forgot about that. That's one thing about this game that's also an improvement over X5. If you watched my very first playthrough of X5 when I was playing as X and you saw Alia interrupt me in the volcano stage, they decided to take that out. Made all Alia conversations non-mandatory. They're optional. You can actually skip the alien conversation, which I am doing now. I'll probably listen to them later, but not this particular playthrough because there's just still so many things you have to add into it. Right here, the gimmick is you want the laser to aim at the mirror so that it opens the door. This actually allows for a diverging pathway later, and it also makes it so that you have to rotate ladders and things. Yeah, the gimmick, you saw it coming. You have to rotate this ladder so that we can open the door. One of the things about this stage is where you see the laser impacting, you can't get touched by that, but you can actually get touched by the beam afterwards and not get hit. It won't kill you, but it does make you take a little bit of damage. Right here, if you want to take the normal path, which I will be taking later, I'm going ahead and rearranging these mirrors so I don't have to rearrange them later. If you want to take the normal path, since you get the Shield Sheldon and get his weapon and everything like that, you can actually go and take the top path. I'm taking the bottom path because I'm headed someplace else. There's other different places. There's different ways that you get to the place that I'm trying to get to at this point, but I prefer coming at it from this stage. Most people come at it from Infinity Mignon stage. I don't really remember his name. I'm just guessing, but I really don't feel like fighting that gigantic Reploid at this moment. Anyway, what was I talking about? Oh yes, X6 did make a few changes. They allowed the conversations to be optional, which I love. They also did something else. All the cutscenes in this game are skippable. You don't actually have to watch the cutscenes every single time. I'm only watching the cutscene this time because, of course, this is the first playthrough. And this is a good thing. I will be touching a little bit more on that in a second. This is the reason why it's hard to get 100% this game. You see how that Nightmare is headed for that Reploid? If the Nightmare reaches the Reploid becomes infected. And when they become infected, there's nothing you can do about it. You can't get that person back in that playthrough. You either have to restart the entire level. I mean, you have to restart the entire game. Not from, like, the beginning, but you have to restart from continue or save game, or you have to restart the entire game to save. I think I die here again. Every single Reploid in the game. I think I go after that heart die. Yeah, I went after that heart. But that's what makes it hard 100% this game. I actually never have 100% of this game. Of course, it's been years since last time I played this game. But I think I've grown as a gamer since then. So I should be able to 100% this without too much difficulty. But what was I talking about? Oh yes, skipping cutscenes. That was one thing that I really I really like the fact that they allowed you to skip cutscenes, because in X5 you couldn't skip cutscenes, and it was quite annoying having to sit through that cutscene every single time, and I messed up here, so I'm probably just going to take the death. Because I want some invincibility, or I could just air dash, because I was actually aiming for that weapon tank, which I don't really need right now, so I don't know why I'm going after it. So I think I skip it. I don't quite remember. But anyway, it's the ability to skip cutscenes. Now here it is, 2005 or 2006, one of those two. And Capcom has given us the ability to skip cutscenes, which in X5 you couldn't do. So you have to mash the button if you played the game again before. That's well and good, but here it is now, 2013. Now we've got a story game like Remember Me. And I have a whole rant about Remember Me. But right now we're getting ready to fight Nightmare Zero. Nightmare Zero is like a mixture between the regular Zero and the Maverick Zero that you fought in X5. He uses all the attacks that Maverick Zero uses, except for... No, he uses all the attacks that Maverick Zero uses. The only difference is his long slash attack, which you'll actually see in this game. I never showed it off in my X5 playthrough. But his slash attack will actually not kill you. It's not instant death like that attack. It's not instant death like it was in X5. Once Maverick Zero started spamming that, the battle was over. But he's actually weak against Zero Saber. But it has to be a standing slash. If you jump and you slash, he's not going to be knocked back by it. But anyway, back to cutscenes. 2013, we got a game called Remember Me, which Remember Me wasn't that bad. It was highly anticipated, but it wasn't that bad. My favorite boss is the second boss. I think her name's Margaret. But the one thing about Remember Me was, while you could do everything in one single playthrough, most likely you weren't. So you had to play through the game multiple times to get everything in it. And you knew the story after the first time. So it's the most frustrating thing to have to sit through the cutscenes, which you cannot skip. They're all text, and it's just the most annoying thing. In a game, you should be able to skip a cutscene. I'm just serious. If you've played through the game before, there's no reason to make the player sit through the cutscene all over again. Especially if you had to do it like me, and you kept missing those little stupid bugs, and you had to play the stupid game 4 different times. Especially since the game's only 2 hours long, but adding the cutscenes is 4 hours. But anyway, this is probably the reason why most people hate X6, is that one line, "I hid myself away while I tried to repair myself." And really, that's really not that bad. If you really hate it because that's a gigantic plot hole, then let's take Zero's character into account. Zero's slightly prideful, and he's this gung-ho, I can do everything by myself character. Well, he's not that, but he's got that sort of armor on. That's the feel that he tries to let off, even though he doesn't mind working as a team and he's willing to sacrifice himself. But if that's the whole issue that you have with this game, and that's the whole reason why the story bothers you, then think of it a different way. Think of it as Dr. Light was the one who repaired him, because it's obvious that Dr. Light lied to Zero a few times. If you think about it in X5, he lied to Zero when he said that he didn't recognize the Doctor, even though he would have known who Dr. Wily was. He was his main antagonist. And then also, with every single clash that Megaman had with Dr. Light, Megaman had with Dr. Wily, there's no possible way Dr. Light couldn't have known who Dr. Wily was. And number two, he said he didn't know anything about Zero systems, but if you found the hidden armor upgrade for Zero, which was in the second to last stage of X5, you get a massive improvement to Zero systems. You get the shot eraser. I mean, there's so many things that happen that Dr. Light was able to take care of that really, Dr. Light could have repaired Zero. He really could have. That may not be the canon as exists by, I can't remember the director's name, but does it really matter? Does it really matter that much? But anyway, I've droned on long enough about this game. Zero's back. I won't be using him in this playthrough. That's about it. Enjoy the playthrough.